Somewhere in Kingston right now, a song that almost got overshadowed by a feature with a Marley is quietly doing something nobody predicted. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why that matters more than any single chart number could tell you. This is the story of Honor Roll, the record that was supposed to be a footnote on Masicka's new album, and how it ended up becoming the most talked about moment of his entire rollout, sitting at #1 on Apple Music in 5 different countries, and knocking his own collaboration with Damian Marley clean off the top of YouTube Jamaica's daily charts. If you think you know how this happened, stay with me, because the real story isn't just about streaming numbers. It's about a 22-year veteran of the game choosing to hand a spotlight moment to an artist most casual fans had never even heard of a year ago, and what that decision is now revealing about where Jamaican dancehall is headed next. Let's set the scene properly, because context is everything here. On Friday, August 14th, 2026, Masicka released his 3rd studio album, Forever Rain, a 17-track project through Def Jam Recordings that arrived exactly 1 day before he made history with his debut headlining show at Brooklyn's Barclays Center, his first ever U.S. arena performance. This wasn't just another album drop. This was Masicka closing out what feels like a 3-part saga about ambition, power, and legacy. His independent debut, 438, told the story of the struggle and the hustle. Generation of Kings was his arrival at the throne. And Forever Rain is about something much harder to pull off than getting to the top. It's about what it takes to stay there once everybody is watching, once everybody wants a piece of you, and once the next generation is already circling, hungry for their turn. Now, going into release weekend, everyone assumed they knew which song was going to dominate the conversation. The album opens with one psalm, a collaboration with reggae royalty Damian Jr. Gong Marley. And if you know anything about Jamaican music, you know that pairing a rising dancehall king with a Marley is the kind of moment that's engineered to trend. It's got weight. It's got lineage. It practically writes its own headlines. And for a hot minute, it did exactly that. But then something happened that nobody in Masicka's camp fully saw coming. And it's the reason you're watching this video right now. Track number 9 on Forever Rain is called Honor Roll, and it features an artist named Kraff Gad, someone who, until this album, most people outside of hardcore dancehall circles had probably never heard mentioned in the same sentence as Masicka. This wasn't a superstar pairing. This wasn't 2 established names linking up because it would look good on a track list. This was Masicka's first ever collaboration with Kraff, a rising DJ who's been quietly building momentum on his own terms. And within days of the album dropping, Honor Roll wasn't just holding its own against the Damian Marley record. It was outperforming it. It climbed to #1 on Apple Music in Antigua and Barbuda, Grenada, Guyana, Jamaica, and St. Kitts and Nevis, a spread across the Caribbean that music insiders are calling exactly the kind of first-week movement that makes an entire industry stop and pay attention. That's 5 countries, not one lucky market. 5 separate audiences, in 5 separate places, all reaching for the same song at the same time. But here's the part of this story that should genuinely give you chills if you understand what it means in dancehall culture. Honor Roll didn't just chart well. It knocked one psalm, the Damian Marley collaboration, completely out of the top spot on YouTube Jamaica's daily charts. Think about what that actually means for a second. This is a song featuring a legacy artist, a member of one of the most iconic families in the history of reggae music, and it got pushed aside by a track pairing Masicka with someone many fans were still learning the name of. That is not a small thing. That is the kind of chart shift that changes how an entire industry looks at an artist's trajectory, and right now, all eyes are turning toward Kraff Gad. So why did this happen? Why did Honor Roll resonate so much harder than anyone expected? Part of the answer lives in what Masicka himself has said about the collaboration. In interviews around the album's release, he explained exactly why he chose to bring Kraff onto this specific record. He said Kraff's style is different, and that watching him reminded Masicka of himself back when he was coming up, hungry, unproven, and desperate to be heard. He didn't frame this as a favor or a marketing move. He framed it as recognition. One artist seeing the fire in another and deciding to hand him a real platform instead of keeping all the light for himself. And in an industry where established stars often protect their spotlight fiercely, that kind of gesture doesn't go unnoticed by fans. People felt the authenticity in that choice. and it's part of why the song has connected the way it has. There's something else worth sitting with here, something that music writers covering the album have picked up on. Across all 17 tracks on Forever Rain, Masicka only included 4 featured guest artists total: Damian Marley, Nigerian rapper Blackbiness, reggae singer Lila Ike, and Kraff Gad. For names, on an entire album, at a moment in his career when he could have stacked the track list with big features to guarantee streaming numbers. He didn't do that. He kept this project tight and intentional, which means every single feature he did include was a deliberate choice, not filler. And out of that short, curated list, it's the newest name, the least established name, that ended up producing the biggest chart reaction. That's not luck. That's a signal about where real cultural momentum is actually building right now in dancehall, and it's happening in real time, while we're all watching. Now let's talk about what this means for Kraff Gad specifically, because this is where the story gets even more interesting if you're someone who likes spotting the next wave before everyone else catches on. Being featured on a Masicka album is already a significant career moment for any rising artist. But having that specific song outperform a track featuring a Marley, hitting #1 across 5 countries, and dethroning it on YouTube's Jamaica charts, that's the kind of placement that can genuinely shift how an entire industry perceives an artist's trajectory overnight. This is the moment people look back on later and say, that's when things changed for him. Music industry observers have already started framing this as exactly that kind of inflection point, the sort of viral chart moment that turns a name people were only half aware of into someone labels, promoters, and collaborators start actively chasing. And there's a layer of meaning underneath all of this that makes it hit even harder if you know Masicka's own story. This is a man who was born Javon Farron in Independence City, Portmore, raised in a neighborhood locally known as Sin City, a single-parent household, the kind of environment where making it out is never guaranteed and never easy. He earned the nickname, The Future, as a teenager at Calabar High School because of his lyrical ability. And he clawed his way up from winning a hype TV DJ competition as a teenager to becoming one of the most respected voices in modern dancehall. When an artist with that kind of origin story looks at a younger DJ and says, "I see myself in you," and then backs that up by putting him on a career-defining album, and that song goes on to outperform expectations in a way nobody predicted, it stops being just a music story. It becomes a story about legacy, actually working the way it's supposed to. Not gatekeeping, not hoarding shine, passing it forward and watching it multiply. Of course, no major album release in dancehall comes without its share of conversation and controversy, and Forever Rain is no exception, even beyond the honor roll surprise. Another track on the album, Slip and Slide, has sparked its own discussion because it draws from Jamaica's traditional folk song, Hill and Gully Rider, reworking it for a modern club setting. Some cultural figures have pushed back on how contemporary dancehall artists have been adapting that particular folk song, arguing it strips away something of its original meaning when it's repurposed for explicit party content. Masicka addressed this head-on during a recent appearance on TVJ's All Angles, which tells you this isn't a controversy he's trying to dodge or downplay. Whether you land on his side of that conversation or not, it shows you that Forever Rain isn't just a collection of hit records designed to chart quietly and disappear. It's an album that's actively shaping cultural conversation in Jamaica right now, on multiple fronts, at the same time. And zoom out even further, because the honor roll story isn't happening in isolation. The full album, Forever Rain, reached #1 on Apple Music in 12 countries within just days of its release, which on its own would be one of the biggest stories of Masicka's career. But instead, the record everyone keeps circling back to in conversation isn't the lead single or the Marley feature. It's the one nobody was talking about the week before release. That's an incredibly rare thing to witness in real time. An album's most significant commercial moment being determined not by industry expectation, but by the audience itself, deciding collectively, almost instantly, which song actually deserved the crown. So where does this leave things going forward? If Honor Roll keeps climbing, and if Kraff Gad keeps building on this momentum, we could be watching the exact moment a new name gets permanently written into the next chapter of Jamaican dancehall. Masicka has already proven, through his own career, exactly what that kind of trajectory can look like when it's built on real skill and real timing. Going from a competition-winning teenager to headlining Barclays Center in New York took over a decade of grinding, evolving, and staying relevant in an industry that chews up talent that doesn't adapt. If this chart run is the beginning of something similar for Kraff, then what we're watching right now with Honor Roll isn't just a good week for a song. It's the opening scene of a career. There's also a bigger cultural question sitting underneath all of this that's worth thinking about before you scroll away from this video. Why did audiences across 5 different Caribbean countries, independently, choose the newcomer's record over the Marley collaboration? Was it simply that Honor Roll is the stronger song on pure musical merit? Was it the chemistry between Masicka and Kraff feeling fresher and less predictable than a pairing everyone saw coming from the moment the tracklist leaked? Or is there something deeper happening here? A shift in what dancehall audiences are actually craving right now? Less legacy nostalgia, more raw new energy that feels unpredictable and alive? I genuinely think it's a combination of all three, but I want to know what you think, because this is exactly the kind of moment that reveals what an entire genre's fan base actually values when you strip away the marketing and the expectations and just let the numbers speak. Before we wrap this up, it's worth remembering that Masicka didn't have to do any of this. He could have leaned entirely on his own star power and his Damian Marley feature to carry this album's narrative. He could have played it safe. Instead, he handed a major spotlight to someone still building his name, said publicly that this younger artist reminds him of himself, and then watched that decision produce one of the biggest chart stories of his own career. That takes a level of confidence that a lot of established artists simply don't have, because it means being willing to share the moment, even risk being outshined on your own album, in service of something bigger than just protecting your own numbers. And right now, the data says that gamble paid off in a way nobody, maybe not even Masicka himself, fully expected. So here's what I want to leave you with. Honor Roll is currently sitting at #1 on Apple Music across 5 countries. It dethroned a Damian Marley collaboration on YouTube Jamaica's charts. And it's turning Kraff Gad from a name insiders were quietly watching into a name the entire Caribbean is now talking about out loud. This is the kind of moment that either fades in a few weeks or turns into the origin story people point back to years from now when Kraff Gad becomes a household name in his own right. Which one do you think it's going to be? Drop a comment and tell me. Do you think Honor Roll outperformed One Psalm because it's genuinely the better record, or because audiences are craving something new that a Marley feature, as powerful as it is, just couldn't give them this time? And while you're down there, tell me who you think the next Kraff Gad is, which rising dancehall artist deserves this exact kind of career-changing moment next. I read every single comment, so don't hold back. And if this breakdown gave you a new way of looking at how a chart moment gets made, make sure you're subscribed, because this is exactly the kind of story we're going to keep digging into on this channel.